I will not beg life to be life. I cannot permit my good to be postponed into some vaporous future event, as if tomorrow were kinder than God is now. I refuse to teach the mind to hustle the infinite, to twist the arm of heaven with affirmations that are merely refined fear. I will not stand before my own being as a suppliant with a shopping list. For the earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. And if the fullness thereof is the nature of being, I must not dare to live as if I am outside of it, angling to get a corner of it for myself. Now let us speak plainly. This modern habit of manifesting, as commonly practiced, is not faith. It is the tremor of a frightened self trying to force life to cooperate. It teaches the little manager within to scheme for outcomes, to project images, to bargain with the Almighty in the coin of thought. But I cannot allow that. I cannot train myself to be a clever beggar. I must awaken as the one to whom life already belongs, by nature of being. Be still and know that I am God. Not know that I will get something if I am still. Know that I is the very presence of sufficiency. Supply is not produced by effort. Supply is not the wage of strenuous mind work. Supply is not a trophy given to the strongest prayer. Supply is what is when the straining self relaxes its claim to authorship. When the chattering me, with its anxious blueprints, retires from the driver's seat, grace is no longer obstructed by my interference. The lilies do not manifest their raiment. They reveal it by being what they are. Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And I must not make a liar of that scripture by constructing a theology of toil that merely changes clothes from laboring hands to laboring thoughts. Therefore, I assume conscious dominion in this one way. I refuse to struggle. I, in this instant, lay down the sword of mental coercion. I do not command God. I do not hypnotize the universe with insistence. I do not draft techniques to bully being into performance. It has to be a gentle I, not an egotistical I, that says, I am satisfied with the isness of God. I am content to let what is be seen. I stand as the porter at the door of thought and will not admit one beggar idea, not one picture that requires pleading, panic, or push. Now, part of our work together will be an experiment of subtraction, not adding more clever sentences, not tightening the jaw around a new formula. For the next while, we will not attempt to manufacture supply. We will remove the strain that hides it. We will decline the role of author and quietly receive the fact that there is an author. I am that I am, not I am that I get. We will sit inside that name until the pulse slows and the breath becomes honest. And in that honesty, the already present good reveals itself without our meddling. I do not promise that the habit of forcing will surrender in 1 minute. I will not pretend that this is easy. The old reflex may try to rise. It may whisper that if I don't push, I will be left out. But I cannot believe that lie. Take no thought for your life is not negligence. It is alignment with the already operating life that feeds birds without bank books and clothes valleys without sewing machines. So I begin here with a holy refusal. I will not beg life to be life. I will not worship the calendar as the custodian of my good. I rest in what is, and I watch what remains when the strain is subtracted. And what remains is grace pressing to reveal itself the moment I cease to impersonate its source. Now we must make plain what cannot be mixed without birthing lack. Never confuse Joel with I. Joel is the personal sense, the time-bound manager, the anxious planner who thinks in calendars and coin. I is the living presence, the unsourced source, the life that is its own supply. Do you remember that I did not say my oneness with God as a possession? I said my conscious oneness with God as a recognition. I and my Father are one. That is not a contract signed by Joel. It is the fact of being announcing itself. The moment the personal self lays claim to authorship, there begins the shadow called lack, for it assumes a separate mind must obtain, must earn, must attract, must deserve. I cannot permit that assumption to take root in my consciousness. I do not have God. God is the I of me. Before Abraham was, I am. Listen carefully. Lack is not a missing resource. Lack is a mistaken identity claiming to be the source. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want is not a promise that a private Joel will be escorted to green pastures by a distant deity. It is the I speaking as shepherding presence. It is the self of all announcing its sufficiency. Therefore, I do not consult Joel's cleverness to secure my life. I consent to I, not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. It is not my techniques, not my affirmations, not my intellectual bargains. It is the quiet I, closer than breathing, that is the bread of life. I then am the bread of life. Not Joel's pantry, not Joel's hustle, but the I that feeds even the birds without arithmetic. Now let me caution you, because there is danger here. It has to be a gentle I, not an egotistical I, not a swashbuckling I that shouts down the room and preens in spiritual costume. Put up thy sword. If this I is employed to inflate personality, it is not I. It is only Joel putting on God words like borrowed armor. Cease ye from man, whose breath is in his nostrils. Do not fasten the infinite to the nostrils of a passing persona. The true I does not strut. The true I does not force. The true I says quietly, I am that I am, and in that I amness, the compulsion to dominate evaporates. The river flows of itself. I speak from practice, not theory. I had my long periods in which Joel tried to make spiritual law work, tried to maneuver supply with intention and strain. Sometimes that old habit still tries to rise, may get the best of me for a breath or a day, but not for too long. I snap out of it by returning to identity. I return to the name. I do not patch the symptom. I remember the source. I whisper I on the exhale until the thought of a private doer dissolves and the present stands revealed as the only actor here. Therefore, I assume conscious dominion in this one crucial way. I refuse to accept any thought that makes me a separated proprietor of life or a beggar of goods. I stand as the porter at the door of thought, and I do not admit the sentence, I must get, I must earn, I must deserve, I must attract. I let it knock and pass by. I let it knock and pass by, for in him we live and move and have our being. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Seeking the kingdom is not Joel climbing a ladder to heaven. It is Joel being quiet enough to disappear into I, and there discovering that addition is the way life behaves when no one is trying to add. So hear me, and take it into the bloodstream. Lack is not a thing in the world. It is a thought of separation inside the mind that has taken Joel to be I. correct the identity and you correct the condition. I then am the life. I then am the light. I then am supply. And because I alone am, I do not chase what I am. I reveal it. I rest, and it appears in form as and when it must. We will in a moment take dominion at the door of thought. But first let this foundation be laid. Never mix up Joel and I. When Joel vanishes into I, the math of want dissolves into the presence that cannot want, for it is all. Now we come to the discipline without which philosophy becomes a decorative failure. I cannot permit my mind to remain an unguarded gate through which the world sphere marches like an army. I must maintain dominion, not over people, not over weather, not over bank books, but over what is admitted into consciousness as authority. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. I stand here the porter at the door of thought. I stand as a tiler over my mind and my body. Nothing shall enter that defileth or maketh a lie, because I, gentle I, not egotistical, I assume conscious governance of what I consent to believe. Now let me expose a common snare, for I have stumbled in it. The personal mind sits down at the console and reviews the bank balance, reviews the calendar, reviews the probability charts, and then baptizes this rehearsal of fear as visualizing. It paints anxious pictures of how it must be, and then calls it faith because the paint is positive. But I cannot fight effects on the screen and call it dominion. Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit unto his stature? I do not move numbers by staring at numbers. I do not move time by arguing with time. Grace is not blocked by circumstances. Grace is blocked when I let an unguarded thought claim the throne and dictate terms to reality. Therefore, the practice is simple, and it is strict. When the urge to force arises, when the inner knuckles whiten, and a sentence begins with, I must make it happen, that is merely a knock at the door. Do not debate it. Do not hold a committee meeting with it. Do not entertain it with tea and scripture. Deny it entrance. I let it knock and pass by. I let it knock and pass by, casting down imaginations, and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought, I say within, not mine, not I. This is only suggestion. I do not accept jurisdiction from fear, comparison, or time pressure. How do I do this in the hour of heat? I breathe once, gently, and on the exhale I whisper, I. The word rises not from the head but from the chest, closer than breathing. I do not negotiate with the visitor. I return to the host. If an image of dwindling funds appears, I do not paint over it. I withdraw consent. If a clock shouts that it is too late, I do not argue minutes. I step back into the timeless. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. My staying is my governance. I do not hurl thoughts at thoughts. I assume my post and watch them pass like clouds that have no power to reign inside unless I open the window. Now, yes, sometimes it still tries to take the house. Sometimes a suggestion bursts in before I have the latch drawn, may get the best of me for a moment, but not for long. I snap out of it by reclaiming identity. I then am the life here. I then am the law here. Put up thy sword, no swashbuckling fight, only the quiet standard raised. Be still and know that I am God. In that stillness, the usurper has no oxygen. The breath slows, the noise subsides, and the government is upon his shoulder, not on Joel's cleverness. I will not fight shadows on the wall. I will not push against effects and call it prayer. I take dominion where dominion is given at the door of thought. Today I set a watch. Today I decide what I host. Fear may knock. Comparison may perform its little dance. Time may blow its horn. I will not debate them. I deny them entrance. I stand as porter, and I admit only the I that says, I am that I am. And as I do, conditions will conform without strain, for I have ceased granting power to what never had it, and I have yielded to the only power that is. Now hear me, and let this sink past the ears into the marrow. Fear is not your mind. Panic is not the self of you. The anxious voice that whispers, I must manifest or I will fail, is not the I of you at all. It is impersonal mesmerism, hypnotism, suggestion, seeking a host. Let me repeat that error is impersonal. It has no parentage in God, no birth certificate in being. It is wind looking for a window. Do not take it in and call it yourself. Who told thee that thou wast naked? That is the ancient question. Not God, not I, only suggestion. Therefore, I assume conscious dominion in this way. I name the visitor for what it is, mesmerism, suggestion, and I let it drop. I do not embroider it into a life story. I do not publish memoirs about my shortage. I do not invite panels and debates to give panic a microphone. I will not build a temple to a breeze. I stand as the porter and say, not mine, not I, and I refuse to dramatize a knock at the door as a home invasion. God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. I then am that sound mind. I then am the quiet power that needs no noise. Now, yes, some of you have been shamed by the new religion of manifesting, as if you were poor students in a classroom of outcomes. You have been told you are a bad manifester because your calendar did not melt on command. I cannot permit that accusation to find lodging in you. There is no such thing as a spiritual dunce where I is the teacher. You are not failing. You are witnessing impersonal error, attempting to operate as you're thinking. Recognize it, and you have already won. Perfect love casteth out fear, not perfect performance, not perfect visualizing. Perfect love, love of truth so pure that it refuses to adopt a lie as identity. The practice is simple, and I do not say easy, but I say certain. In the instant the pressure mounts and the inner voice barks, orders, hurry, fix it, get it, label it calmly, mesmerism. On the exhale whisper, I, put up thy sword. Do not lunge at it. Do not swashbuckle with it. Only breathe. And in that gentle breath, you deny it oxygen. Suggestion cannot live in recognition. It feeds on disguise. It starves in the light. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Standing still is not paralysis. It is identity stabilized. I stand still as I. Let me confess for your comfort. Sometimes it still tries to, may get the best of me for a little while. Old tapes play. A number on a page pretends to be a prophet, but not for too long. I snap out of it by impersonalizing it. Not mine, not I. Hypnotism, mesmerism, suggestion, and then let it drop. When the mind is no longer the crime scene of a supposed personal failure, shame evaporates like dew in the sun, and what remains is space, holy space for impartation. The vacancy left by panic is not a hole. It is a sanctuary. There the still small voice speaks without strain. Do not only apply this to yourself, extend it outward. The one who denied you, delayed you, or misread you, cease condemning them. They were but an instrument as which an impersonal error operated for a moment. When you remove personality from error, judgment dissolves, and you do not chain yourself to yesterday. Forgive them, for they know not what they do, is not sentimental, it is metaphysical clarity. There is no such thing as an evil for which you or I are responsible, or for which another is responsible, in the sense of an originating selfhood. I alone am selfhood. Error has no selfhood. Release it, and you release yourself. And now the bridge into quiet. When error is seen as suggestion only, I can release it without theater. The moment I cease wrestling, the space it occupied becomes receptivity. Into that open place comes the gentle government right idea, right timing, right word without any clang of effort. Be still and know that I am God. Breathe gently, breathe slowly, always on the exhale. I, when your breathing slows, when the pulse settles, that is the sign the suggestion has no home here. I, then, am the life, the law, the peace of this consciousness. And because I am, I need not force. I recognize, I receive, I rest. Now we take the next step, and I must be plain, because this is the narrow gate that turns doctrine into life. Words themselves, even holy words, can become idols in the head. God in the head is still a picture. Abundance in the head is still a thing to be chased. Supply in the head is a golden calf with a spiritual label. I cannot permit my prayer to be a museum of beautiful nouns. The letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life. The mental image, even gilded with scripture, remains an object. Objects presuppose distance. Distance presupposes lack. And we are done with lack. So I make a practice of sacred subtraction. One by one I let the terms fall away. God, spirit, presence, abundance, supply, prosperity, until I am no longer reciting a lexicon, but resting in a life. You will find there is one word you cannot get rid of, and it is not a theological word at all. It is the first and last word of awareness. I. Before Abraham was, I am. When every other syllable sinks back into silence, this one remains, not as a thought I am thinking, but as the very sense of being alive, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. The kingdom of God is within you, not within your vocabulary, within you, within the felt, living I. Now, yes, I know how strong the habit is to think God up there, supply out there, and then mount techniques to fetch them. But I cannot allow myself to treat the infinite as an object to be acquired by clever performance. I must stand still and know, not picture and persuade. Be still and know that I am God. Do you hear the instruction? Be still and know not about God, but I am God. The knowing and the I are the same event. When I say I here, it has to be a gentle I, not an egotistical I, not Joel puffed with sacred syllables, not a swashbuckler of affirmations. Put up thy sword. I means the self-same life that says of itself, I am that I am. How shall I find this I? I do not climb to it with concepts. I sink to it with attention. All the other words rise up out of the head. They clatter against the skull. I rises up out of the chest. Let attention rest there, centerward, where the breath moves of itself. On the exhale, let a soft I float, not spoken with the mouth, but recognized with the awareness that feels breath come and go. The word is nigh thee, even in thy mouth and in thy heart. When attention settles there, The pictures of getting dissolve without argument. Supply ceases to be a coin or a calendar. It is presence felt, not imagined. I then am the bread of life, not as a pantry in the sky, but as the quiet substance of being, nourishing this moment without bargain. As the words fall, the manipulator falls with them. The one who arranges outcomes lives in adjectives and nouns. Strip the nouns and he has nowhere to stand. The pressure drops because there is no longer a separate someone leaning on a separate something to come through. Deep calleth unto deep, eye to eye. When there is only I, the call and the answer are one movement, and that movement appears as right idea, right place, right time, without strain. My sheep hear my voice. They do not hunt for it. They are it hearing itself. Now let me speak in confession to keep us honest. Sometimes the vocabulary rushes back. Sometimes I hear myself praying to a word, polishing it as if polish could turn brass into gold. It may get the best of me for a few breaths, but not for too long. I snap out of it by returning to the nameless center, by letting the bright words rest, by feeling the soft tide of the lungs and letting I rise where it belongs, in the heart, not the head. In that instant, the world of things loosens its grip and presence stands revealed as already enough. Therefore, I assume conscious dominion at this deeper threshold. I refuse to worship my own phrases. I will not try to bribe reality with liturgy. I will sit in the nakedness of I until the need to manage evaporates in the warmth of what is. And as we move forward, we will make this practical, how to breathe out the strain and let the inner impartation speak. For when language drops, revelation is not forced, it is natural, like sap rising in spring. Seek ye first the kingdom within, and all these things, without any clatter of technique, are added because I, not Joel, is living this life. Now let us make this practical, because truth without practice hardens into a pious crust. I cannot permit my meditation to become a wrestling match with thoughts. I will not lunge at them, nor will I braid them into garlands. I assume conscious dominion in a gentler way. I settle into a continuous contemplation, light and steady, not as a sprinter, but as a walker who will not be hurried. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. I do not try to make anything happen. I allow the already happening life to show itself by ceasing to interrupt it. Here is the simple way. Sit or stand as you are. This is not theater. Let attention gather centerward, not in the head that clatters, but in the chest where breath moves of itself. Breathe gently. Breathe slowly. And always on the exhale, let the word I arise not as a magic syllable, but as recognition. I. Not shouted, not pushed, just permitted, like a leaf surrendering to gravity. The word is nigh thee, even in thy mouth and in thy heart. On the inhale, do nothing. Receive. On the exhale, let I be heard within. Receive. And then recognize. That is the rhythm. Thoughts will present their petitions. A bill will wave its paper. A clock will demand. A memory will narrate. I cannot permit any of these to claim authority, and yet I will not fight them. I stand as the porter at the door of thought, and I allow them to pass without audience. Not mine, not I. If one clings, I do not sharpen a sword. I soften the breath. I, peace, be still. The still small voice has no need to shout down the wind. It waits until the wind spends itself, and my breathing is the sign that I have ceased to feed the storm. Now the success sign, so that you will not chase performance. When the breath slows and becomes almost imperceptible, when it feels as if respiration is happening by itself while you witness, you are yielding the driver's seat. You have not manufactured a trance. You have surrendered a grip. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me beside the still waters. The still waters are not a lake outside. They are the tides of breath within when Joel's hand loosens from the wheel and I pilots without noise. If you notice that your breath is being forced, that you are pushing it or chasing it, you have slipped into performance. Smile inwardly. Stop pushing. Return to simple receiving on the inhale and soft recognition on the exhale. Do not time this like a drill. Do not count minutes as if counting could count God into the room. Let it be frequent and brief until it becomes unbroken. Standing in a line, walking from room to room before answering a message. Pause for one breath cycle of recognition. Inhale, receive. Exhale, I. Make a continuous meditation, a thread that runs under the fabric of your day. When you awaken in the night, do not invite problems to rehearse. Attend the breath and whisper, I. When your breathing slows so that you almost cannot find it, that is your evidence. You are not the conductor, you are the instrument. The Spirit of God hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life. Now a sober warning, because I have stumbled here. The personal mind will try to use even this to get results. It will sit down to breathe in order to make a check arrive, to make a phone ring, to make a body obey. I cannot allow that profanation. Put up thy sword. The practice is not to manufacture supply. The practice is to become still enough to recognize impartation. When I am still, impartation speaks of, it is not a voice with adjectives. It is a knowing that tips the body to stand, to call, to wait, to write, to rest, right place, right time, right idea, without the clang of forcing. Be still and know that I am God. Not be still and bargain, be still and know. Sometimes it still tries to pressure comes. The old manager reaches for the levers and the breath grows noisy. But not for too long. I snap out of it by returning to the mechanics. Inhale, receive. Exhale, I. I do not scold. I resume. And as I resume, the inward current resumes carrying me. Evidence will come as peace first, then as ordered steps, and lastly as form. Do not reverse the sequence. Let peace be the proof of alignment. Let the almost imperceptible breath be your sacrament. I closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet, governing without strain. Then, quietly, what is needed appears as if it had been here all along, because it was. Now we widen the lens, and I say it plainly, so that the seed will not be stolen. There is no my supply and thy supply. I cannot permit in my consciousness the fiction of private storehouses guarded by anxious Joels. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, because I am the only self, and therefore I am thyself. My interests are your interests. My supply is your supply. We are not two beings striking bargains across a gulf. We are one, life in differing offices, one vine with many branches. I then am the vine, ye are the branches. The sap is not mine or thine. It is the one life rising of itself, feeding all without partiality. Do you see the arithmetic now? Scarcity is the math of separation. The moment I think as a private proprietor, a Joel with a corner to defend, I invent a ledger of gain and loss friend and competitor, and then I pray over numbers I myself have carved into the air. But in oneness, there is no ledger. Abundance is not accumulation for Joel. It is the unobstructed flow of the infinite good, appearing as needed, form everywhere I am. Because everywhere I am is the same I being itself as many. All things are yours, and ye are Christ's, and Christ is God's. The pronouns collapse into one, life owning nothing and lacking nothing, because it is all. Therefore, I in this instant assume dominion over the belief in competition. I will not hustle spiritually. I will not quarrel, sue, or jostle for a place in a line that does not exist in I. If I wrongfully deprive another, I deprive myself, for I am not separate from the life I am meeting. With what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. This is not a moral threat. It is simple physics of oneness. If this hand withholds blood from that hand, both belong to the one body and both suffer. We, being many, are one body in Christ, and every one members one of another. Therefore I bless what I meet. I do not fear my neighbor's good. It is my own good reaching me by another door. Now, yes, I know the twitch that says, protect your supply, close your fist, hoard your contacts, defend your market. That is a dream in which branches argue about sap. I will not be found in that dream. I open the hand. I share the contact. I rejoice in another's advancement as my own, because in truth it is. My interests are your interests. My wisdom, your wisdom. My health, your health. There is no my health and thy health. Only the indivisible life of I expressing in infinite variety. Freely ye have received. Freely give. Giving in oneness is not loss. It is circulation. The breath in and the breath out are one act. If I try to inhale only, I suffocate. If I try to exhale only, I faint. In the same way, if Joel hoards, Joel starves. If Joel releases, I reveal flow, and form appears where form is needed. Prosperity, then, is not a bond stacked high to silence fear. It is the ease of passage for good, to take whatever shape this hour requires. Idea, introduction, rest, courage, bread. Give us this day our daily bread. Our, not mine. In the prayer of Christ, there is no private pantry. Daily, not someday. Bread, not bribe. When I abide in I, the appearing of good is timely and exact, and no one is dispossessed to make room for me, for there are no edges in infinity. The table is one and ever spread. Thou preparest the table before me. My cup runneth over. A cup that runs over cannot compete. It can only spill into every cup it meets. Let me be candid, so you will not make a holiness of theory. I have had my hours of guarding my small corner, counting names and coins as if they were oxygen. Sometimes it still tries to take me, and old fear plays its tune, and for a moment I tighten, but not for too long. I snap out of it by returning to I, by remembering that to bless another is self-care in the language of oneness, that to rejoice in your good is to expand the channel through which my own good appears. I then am the law of circulation here. I then am the peace that refuses to hustle. So I end all quarrel and consciousness. I cease suing life for more life. I stand as the porter and deny entrance to the suggestion that my gain is your loss or your gain my diminishment. I let it knock and pass by. And as I rest in the indivisible self, evidence comes without struggle. The right idea for you becomes the right idea for me. The door that opens for you opens, the hallway we both walk. We need not fight, we need not hustle, we need not plead. One self, one good, one infinite supply revealing itself as the need of the moment everywhere I am. Now let the world preach to us, because I cannot permit myself to ignore the daily sermon of nature. Evidence is not a theory. Evidence is life being life without a trumpet. Look here at this hand. Hold it up. Watch it move. This hand cannot lift itself by will. It cannot think a thought or generate a purpose. Apart from I, it is a glove of flesh, a tool without a craftsman. Something animates it, directs it, sustains it, quietly, continuously. Remember this hand can neither give nor withhold of itself. The giving, the withhold, the direction come of I. If the hand strains to be its own source, it cramps. When the hand yields to I, it obeys with ease. Not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit. Now step with me into the sanctuary that requires no roof. Consider the lilies, how they grow. They toil not, they spin not. Behold the fowls of the air. They sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns, yet they are fed. The grass grows in the night, when no gardener watches. Birds cross oceans without maps. The nails at the tips of your fingers lengthen silently while you read these words. Hair pushes out of scalp and chin without a business plan. Lungs drink and pour the air in sleep, and the heart keeps perfect time without a foreman. Who is doing this? Not Joel. In him we live and move and have our being. And I take it further in. We live and move and have our being. For I and the Father are one. Do you see the lesson? Life is already supplying itself. Circulation is the law. The sap rises because it is sap's nature to rise, and the vine concerns itself with no quarterly report. I then am the vine, ye are the branches. The same life that feeds the maple through frozen ground feeds you through changing calendars. The same wisdom that turns the robin's breast toward spring turns your attention toward the right door at the right hour. Supply is not manufactured. It is recognized as the natural procession of I. When there is no obstruction of fear, no clenched fist at the port of thought, thou openest thine hand and satisfiest the desire of every living thing. I open my hand and desire is satisfied, because desire in I is the shape need takes on its way to being met. Now, yes, a mind trained by alarms will ask, but what about my rent, my work, my daily bread? Look again, daily bread is the way grace behaves. Give us this day our daily bread is a description, not a plea. The day carries its portion like the tree carries its ring of growth. It is exact, unhurried, sufficient. He giveth his beloved sleep. In the same way, when I am beloved enough to be believed, guidance arrives in rest, not racket. Steps present without hustle. Introductions occur as if choreographed, because they are by the same choreography that moves the starlings in one mind through the evening air. So I set a simple assignment for this hour, but it is holy. Look at ordinary functioning and ask, who is doing this? As you watch your chest rise and fall, who breathes as you see a cut knit itself? Who knits as you notice a sprout persist through concrete? Who insists? Do not answer with a theology. Do not return to nouns. Let the question soak, and then let the response rise, not from the head, but from the chest. I, a gentle I, not Joel in costume, not a swashbuckling I claiming power, but the quiet I that has always been feeding the sparrow, rolling the tide, and raising your hand when it is time to wave. I then am the life of this body. I then am the law of this day. I then am the bread of life, revealing as idea, as timing, as phone call, as rest. Evidence without effort is not laziness. It is alignment. When I stop forcing, the already operating grace becomes visible, as obvious as pulse at the wrist. Be still and know that I am God. And in that knowing, look around. The world has been a demonstration all along. The grass underfoot, the breath in the chest, the bird on the wire. They are all saying one thing in 1,000 voices. Supply is I being itself, everywhere, forever, without strain. Now, I must warn you, and I cannot soften this. Techniques can feed the ego. Prayer can be turned into leverage. Truth can be sharpened into a personal weapon. I cannot permit that in myself, nor can I permit it in this room of consciousness we share. When affirmations become spells to coerce life, when visualizations become lures to make God a supplier on Joel's terms, we have left grace and entered sorcery of the polite sort, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit. If the practice strengthens personal control, it is not grace. It is ego wearing sacred language. Let me state it clean. We are not using I to dominate life. We are surrendering Joel so that life may be itself as us. Be still and know that I am God. Not be clever and manage God. Not bribe reality with pious syllables. I is not a private engine under Joel's hood. I is the universal self, the only self, the vine that gives sap to branch without bargaining. Therefore, I assume conscious dominion over motive. I search my intent at the door of thought. Am I attempting to bend the world, or am I yielding Joe so that I may be the world's gentle blessing? Put up thy sword. It has to be a gentle eye, not an egotistical eye, not the swashbuckler who chants to conquer. Now I give you a diagnostic so you will not deceive yourselves. If your practice increases tension, it is control, not revelation. If you leave meditation and feel taller than your neighbor, you have fed superiority, not spirit. If you spend the day in frantic monitoring, checking signs, counting synchronicities like a gambler's tickets, you are in management, not in God. By their fruits ye shall know them. What are the fruits? Peace first, then clarity, then unobstructed right action. The fruit is never a clenched jaw or a proud chest. The wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated. If it is not gentle, it is not the Christ mind. I will not pretend I have never slipped. Sometimes it still tries to pressurize, and I catch myself praying with one eye on the clock and one on the mailbox, flogging the silence for results. It may get the best of me for an hour, but not for too long. I snap out of it by returning to the breath on the exhale, and by confessing, not mine, not I, hypnotism, mesmerism, suggestion. Then I let it drop. The moment I cease using the holy to hustle outcomes, the holy uses me, and everything softens into order. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. He made himself of no reputation. Do you hear it? No reputation, no scoreboard, no jockeying for place. Here is the right use of practice: to drop the sword, yield the claim, and let the Christly sense govern. I stand as the porter at the door of thought, as a tiler over mind and body, not to stage a coup, but to keep the court clear for the king. I do not storm the heavens. I open the gate. I do not press the oil. I keep the lamp trimmed. When the thought arises, I will breathe. In order to get a thing, I say, get thee behind me, and I return to the gentle eye that neither grabs nor begs. Not my will, but thine be done is not defeat. It is the only position from which the universal order can reveal as right place, right time, right idea. Therefore I set a seal upon my lips and motives. I will not turn prayer into pressure, nor revelation into technique. If the inner voice suggests tactics that make me tense, superior, or suspicious, I know at once this is not the still small voice. This is control investments. I refuse it, audience. I wait until the breath is soft and the heart unambitious. Then, and only then, the current resumes, and the day arranges itself without strain. For I and the Father are one, and in oneness there is nothing to dominate and no one to impress, only the quiet governance of grace, revealing supply as itself, because I am being I here. Now let us speak of how supply appears, because I cannot permit a hunger for fireworks to blind me to the quiet revelation that is already at work. Supply, when it is grace, does not crash through the door with cymbals. It arrives as discernment, an opening, a contact, a word to write, a word to withhold, a simplification that removes 3 steps instead of adding 5. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Notice, it is a lamp for the next step, not a stadium floodlight for 10 years of control. I assume conscious dominion over the appetite for spectacle. I refuse to demand drama from the sacred. I accept the lamp and I take the step it reveals. Here is the pattern, and I give it to you so that you will recognize your own breadcrumb trail. First stillness, be still, and know. The breath grows soft. The mind yields its throne. The chest becomes a sanctuary. Then guidance. My sheep hear my voice. Not a shout, a nudge. A direction becomes unmistakable because it is obvious and peaceful. Call her now. Wait until afternoon. Put that paper in the drawer. Decline politely. Send the note. Stop. Then action firm, calm, unforced. When I act from impartation, there is no argument in the body. The jaw is loose. The breath is even. The step is steady. The wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle. If I am straining, I have mistaken a craving for a command. Normalize this subtlety, and you will cease missing your miracles. Grace puts a name in mind without advertising. You dial, and the timing is perfect. Grace closes a door, and the refusal is supply because it saves 10 years of detour. Grace cancels a meeting, and suddenly there is space to receive the idea that was waiting in the hall. Grace sends a hesitation across your chest, and you heed it, and trouble you will never see passes you by like a storm that forgot your street. Supply arrives as subtraction as often as addition. Every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth it, that it may bring forth more fruit. Pruning is supply in the language of form. Simplification is increase in the arithmetic of I. Keep it impersonal. This is not my magnetism attracting events as a planet attracts moons. This is I revealing itself as right sequence, right connection, right order, because receptivity has cleared a place. The hand does not boast that it manifested a cup. I directed, and the hand obeyed. Even so, a check clears, a door opens, a friend appears, a pain dissolves, not because Joel shook the heavens, but because I, the only self, found no obstruction at the door of thought, and so externalized as form, as naturally as breath, externalizes as sound. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Acknowledge I, and paths appear. Paths, not prizes. Steps, not spectacles. I will not pretend I have never tried to force it. Sometimes it still tries to impatience whispers, and I start refreshing the inbox as if spirit were a courier I can hurry. It may get the best of me for a few minutes, but not for too long. I snap out of it by returning to the sequence. Stillness first, guidance next, then the one unhurried act. If there is no guidance, I do not invent it. I wait. He that believeth shall not make haste. Waiting, too, is supply, when waiting is obedience. Time itself becomes a servant that arranges chairs in another room so that when I enter, seats and faces are already placed by a hand I did not see. Do you desire a yardstick for recognition? Peace is first, precision is second, lack of strain is third, peace that passes understanding before any event. Precision, your foot arrives at the curb just as the car stops. The sentence forms itself exactly when the call connects. Lack of strain, you move as if you had rehearsed, though you never did. I go before you to make the crooked places straight. I then am the way here, the movement that prepares and the movement that performs. And when I am the way, there is no friction in the doing. It has to be a gentle I, never a swashbuckler, gentle, and therefore unstoppable. So I train my eye to bless the ordinary, for their grace hides in plain sight. The right place, the right time, the right idea without struggle is not rare. It is the native climate of I. When Joel ceases to litigate with life, I then am the bread appearing as conversation, as cancellation, as courage, as clarity. I then am the shepherd who goes before me, and I follow because the tone of the voice is peace. By their fruits ye shall know them. Here are the fruits, a day that arranges itself, decisions that feel like exhaling, provision that meets the hour without clamor. This is how supply appears. Not forced outcomes, but quiet guidance and right action. Be still. Acknowledge. I take the step that is lit and leave the rest unworried, because the rest is already underway. Now I must say it plain, so that shame cannot nest in the rafters. Sometimes it still tries to take me. The old manager rushes the stage. The tongue tastes hurry. The hand reaches for levers that are not there. For a few breaths, the world's thought parades as my thought, and the body volunteers to be its drum. I cannot permit condemnation to enter at such moments, for condemnation is the second blow, and I do not box myself. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus. I will not stand accused by my own altar. I recognize suggestion, hypnotism, mesmerism, suggestion, and then I let it drop. Here is my protocol, and I give it to you so you will never be homeless in a storm. First, I in this instant assume dominion. I stand as the porter at the door of thought. I stand as a tiler over mind and body. I say inwardly, not mine, not I. Fear is a suggestion. Panic is a broadcast. It is not my mind. It is a sound outside the gate. I refuse it, audience. Second, I return to the chest where breath moves of itself. Inhale, receive. Exhale, I. Gently. No sword. No heroics. It has to be a gentle I, not an egotistical I. On the exhale, I. On the inhale, nothing. Receive. Third, I listen for the stillness as evidence, not for a prophecy. Peace first. If words arise, they arise as a hush. Peace, be still. And the sign of success is not a vision. It is the breath becoming almost imperceptible, the jaw releasing, the shoulders yielding the throne. Do not wait to feel worthy. Do not wait to be composed, to begin composing yourself. Begin in the middle of the noise. Say I in the noise. Let the noise continue without a chair in you to sit on. A just man falleth 7 times and riseth up again. The rising is our practice. The falling is of no report once the rising is quick. Measure progress not by the absence of disturbance, but by the speed of return. I do not promise you that suggestion will never knock. I promise you that your hand will find the latch faster and faster until the door swings on silent hinges and the knock has no house to echo in. Now, yes, this is training. Long, long periods of practice. Repetition until recognition is reflex, not a performance piece. Precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. I had my long periods, and still, sometimes it tries to, restlessness prowls, inboxes glow, calendars crowd. It may get the best of me for an hour, but not for too long. I snap out of it. How? I do not analyze the thought. I withhold power from it. I do not bargain with it. I breathe it out. I, on the exhale, again, 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 until the world's drum fades and the inner impartation, which was never gone, becomes apparent as the quiet that remains when I cease fanning the wind. Take this also for courage. The body will testify to your return before events do. The breath softens. The face unarms. The heart stops sprinting. That is spirit's first fruit in the field of you. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me beside the still waters. When the still waters are felt, I know I have yielded the wheel again. And at that moment, guidance can again be guidance, and not a demand shouted into traffic. Return unto thy rest, O my soul. Let that be your liturgy 10, 20, 50 times a day if need be. We are not attempting to make a record of uninterrupted mastery. We are becoming faithful in the smallest return. Therefore I set my vow. I will not be discouraged by recurrence. I will not make a shrine to failure by staring at it. I will train the prompt return. I will keep the lamp trimmed, not by fussing with flame, but by keeping oil at hand, one breath, one eye, one refusal to condemn. And as this becomes the habit of habits, surrender ceases to be an effort and becomes our native posture. In returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Quicker, surrender again and again until surrender is the way we walk, and walking is worship, and worship is the unobstructed life supplying itself as our day. Now let us make this more than words. I cannot permit this to remain an interesting doctrine filed on a shelf. Therefore I set before you approving, gentle but exact. For 7 days, we will refuse to beg life to be life. We will cease inner bargaining. We will stop the little manager from staging its hustles in the sanctuary. We will stand as the porter at the door of thought, as a tiler over mind and body, and we will let grace reveal what grace has always been revealing. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. For 1 week, the seeking is kingdom only, the adding is none of our business. Here is the vow, and I speak it so it may be yours. For 7 days I will not try to manifest a single thing. I will not entice God with syllables. I will not press the oil. I will keep the lamp trimmed. I, in this instant, and each morning of these 7, assume conscious dominion at the door of thought. Nothing shall enter my mind or body that defileth. No fear, no hurry, no ledger of lack, because I stand here, the porter. Be still and know that I am God. This is the only transaction allowed. Daily, 3 short periods of quiet. Morning, midday, evening, 7 minutes if you can, 3 if you must. Sit without agenda, hands open, eyes soft. On the exhale, the word I gently, inaudibly, from the chest, where breath moves of itself. On the inhale, nothing receive. Do not ask for a thing. Do not shape an outcome. Let the breath slow until it nearly disappears. That softening is your sign. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me beside the still waters. If words arise, let them be no more than peace. Be still, and then return to I. Strip the names and leave the living presence. There is one word you cannot lose, and it is enough. In the day when the impulse to make something happen leaps up, catch it at the gate, label it rightly. Hypnotism, mesmerism, suggestion. Not mine, not I. I refuse. You, audience. One quiet exhale, I. One inner turn of the face toward the chest. Then ask nothing. Wait for the gentle nudge that bears the tone of peace. My sheep hear my voice. If peace is absent, refrain. He that believeth shall not make haste. Delay is supply when delay is obedience. Now I ask for observation, not a scoreboard. Carry a small slip of paper or make a space in your phone only to witness, not to tally. Note the ways supply reveals when you stop forcing. An idea that clarifies, a timing that clicks, a cancellation that becomes a window, a name that arrives precisely, an offer you feel free to decline without fear, a courage that stands you up straight. Record subtraction as gladly as addition. Pruning is provision. Every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth it, that it may bring forth more fruit. Do not grade the day. Bear witness to grace at work. God also, the arithmetic of oneness, as part of the experiment. Each day, bless another's good as your own consciously. Say, my interests are your interests. My supply is your supply. There is no my supply and thy supply. Rejoice at another's gain as an increase in the flow we share. Freely ye have received. Freely give one unforced kindness, guided not by guilt but by the nudge of peace. The breath in and the breath out are one act. I will not pretend this will not try to become a contest. Sometimes it still tries with me. By the 2nd or 3rd day, the old manager whispers, count the proofs, quicken the heavens. It may get the best of me for a moment, but not for too long. I snap out of it. I return to the breath. I return to I. I lay down the sword. Not my will, but thine be done. It has to be a gentle I, not an egotistical I, not a swashbuckler measuring trophies. At night, review only for peace and posture. Was I quicker to return? Did I refuse bargaining? Did I feel the still waters? Did I act from a nudge that was pure, then peaceable, gentle? By their fruits ye shall know them. The first fruit is rest. The second is rightness without strain. Prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven. Prove, not by pressure, but by surrender. So we begin. 7 days. Stop trying. Guard the door. Let grace reveal. I then am the bread of life appearing as guidance and provision. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. And I, being one with the Father, am the place where fullness appears as needed form. In returning and rest we are saved. In quietness and in confidence is our strength. Make the experiment and notice how the day arranges itself when Joel is quiet and I is allowed to be I.